I want you to think about the last pasta sauce you bought. Now ask yourself, do you actually know what's in it? Or do you just trust the brand? Because when researchers did blind taste tests and nutrition breakdowns on the most popular jarred sauces out there, some of the biggest names came out looking really bad. We're talking added sugars, inflammatory oils, and ingredients that exist purely to mask the fact that the tomatoes aren't any good. 8 brands made the avoid list, and 2 actually came out clean. Number 1, Bertolli. Bertolli sells you Italy. The name, the olive branches on the label, the warm color scheme, all of it signals something imported and carefully made. But flip that jar around and read the actual ingredient list. Soybean oil sits right there ahead of olive oil, and that order matters. Soybean oil loads your body with omega-6 fatty acids, and when you eat it regularly, it pushes your gut toward chronic low-grade inflammation. The olive oil is technically in there, but in amounts too small to do anything useful. It's there so the label can say it's there. There's also added sugar and modified food starch, which creates that thick, gluey texture that coats pasta way too heavily. That starch hits your digestive system differently than real tomato solids, and for anyone with a sensitive gut, it triggers bloating that feels like a pasta problem, when it's actually a sauce problem. Number 2, Prego. Prego has been sitting in American kitchens for decades, and most people never bother reading the label because they already trust the name. That trust is costing them. A single serving contains 9 grams of sugar, more than you'd find in a French cruller donut. That's not a trace amount hiding in the background, it's a core ingredient, used specifically to cover up the sour bite of low-grade tomatoes. Pour that over a plate of pasta, and your blood sugar spikes harder than either food would alone. Blind taste testers scored it a 4 out of 10, describing it as syrupy garlic. One taster said it tasted like someone dumped an entire jar of garlic powder into it. That sweetness doesn't just taste bad, it's doing real work in your gut. Number 3, Ragu. Ragu is America's best-selling pasta sauce, and that smell when you crack the jar open is immediate and loud. Heavy garlic, heavy herbs, hitting you before you've even touched the stove. That's not a coincidence. When your tomatoes are low quality, you turn everything else up to cover it. One blind taste test scored Ragu a 3.5 out of 10, with the reviewer saying it tasted like SpaghettiOs but distinctly bitter, and that there were genuinely no real tomatoes in this. The garlic and spice hit hard up front, and when that fades, there's nothing underneath. The ingredient list also includes natural flavors, a term that can legally hide anywhere from 1 to 100 undisclosed compounds. You don't know what you're eating. Number 4, Classico. Classico feels like the smart upgrade, nicer jar, more flavor options, a price that's just high enough to feel like you're making a better choice. But Consumer Reports testing found Classico Marinara scored as the most acidic of the major sauces they evaluated, and that's not just a flavor problem. High acidity irritates your stomach lining directly, and Classico uses added citric acid, not just the natural acidity from tomatoes. Natural tomato acidity comes packaged with buffering compounds. Added citric acid doesn't. It hits harder and faster. And to counterbalance all that sharpness, the sauce adds sugar. So you're getting an acid spike and a sugar spike in the same jar, paying a few dollars more for the privilege. Number 5, Kroger. Store-brand sauce feels like a smart move. Same product, lower price, right? That's what Kroger wants you to think. But the marinara uses canola oil as its fat base, and canola oil is heavily refined, meaning the processing strips out anything that might have been good about it, leaving you with a fat that adds inflammation without adding anything useful. The tomato base leans on paste and puree rather than whole or crushed tomatoes, so the fiber and nutrients you'd get from real tomatoes simply aren't there. The ingredient list looks short and clean, but that's because spices and natural flavors can legally group dozens of undisclosed compounds under one word. You're not getting simplicity, you're getting less disclosure. Number 6, Great Value. Walmart's Great Value sauce is built on one thing: tomato paste. Not whole tomatoes, not crushed tomatoes, paste which gets reconstituted with water, then patted out with sugar, oil, and spices. Consumer reports found that sauces built this way taste sweeter and less fresh than anything made with whole tomatoes. And the sodium clocks in at 490 milligrams per half cup serving, which already burns through 20% of your daily limit before you've touched the pasta or the garlic bread. Budget sauces like this one also pull from cheaper tomato supply chains, and consumer health analyses have flagged those sources for higher levels of heavy metals, like lead and cadmium, that concentrate in tomato products. Your body processes all of it the same way, regardless of what you paid. Number 7, Hunt's. Hunt's built its whole brand on tomatoes. Canned tomatoes, tomato paste, tomato sauce, that's their entire identity. So you'd expect their pasta sauce to actually taste like tomatoes. Some Hunt's varieties use high fructose corn syrup instead of regular sugar, and your liver processes HFCS differently, pushing triglyceride levels up and disrupting the gut bacteria that regulate digestion. That's not a small trade-off for a cheaper sweetener. The sauce also runs thin and watery, and it separates on pasta instead of coating it because there's not enough natural fiber and pectin from quality tomatoes to hold it together. HFCS also bypasses the signals that tell your brain you've had enough sugar, so you don't even get the fullness check that regular sugar triggers. Number 8, Good and Gather. Good and Gather looks the part. Clean label, modern design, organic certification right on the front, and a price that says, I'm better than the other stuff. But a Mamavashian study testing 55 store-bought pasta sauces found something that should make you stop and think. Every single product that tested positive for PFAS above the threshold was certified USDA organic. PFAS are chemicals your body can't break down, so they build up over time and have been linked to thyroid disruption and immune system damage. And the organic label won't protect you because USDA certification covers how the tomatoes were grown, not what happens inside the factory. Good and Gather also uses canola oil and added sugar, so you're paying more for less than you think. Every sauce on the avoid list got there the same way. The manufacturer didn't trust its tomatoes, so it patched the problem with sugar, seed oils, thickeners, and flavor additives until the whole thing tasted acceptable enough to sell. The two brands that come out clean did the opposite. They started with better tomatoes and left them mostly alone. Number 1, Rao's Homemade. Rao's shows up at the top of nearly every pasta sauce ranking, and that consistency across blind taste tests, nutrition breakdowns, and consumer analyses doesn't happen by luck. Read the ingredient list out loud. Whole peeled tomatoes, olive oil, onions, salt, garlic, basil, black pepper, oregano. That's the entire list. No sugar, no seed oils, no modified starch, no natural flavors hiding compounds you can't identify. Every single ingredient is something you'd actually reach for if you were making sauce yourself. The olive oil base gives you monounsaturated fats instead of the inflammatory omega-6 fats packed into soybean and canola oils, and the sodium sits at a level consistent with what you'd add seasoning a homemade batch yourself. No added sugar means the tomatoes carry all the flavor on their own, and they do. Number 2, Mazzetta. Most people haven't heard of Mazzetta, and the brand doesn't fight for shelf space the way the big names do. But food editors and nutrition analysts keep putting it on their short lists, and once you read the ingredient label, it's obvious why. It uses whole San Marzano-style tomatoes, extra virgin olive oil, and a simple spice blend with no added sugar and no seed oils. San Marzano tomatoes run naturally lower in acidity and carry their own sweetness, so there's no sugar needed to make them taste good. That's what clean sourcing actually looks like. Tasting table reviewers called it hearty and slightly sweet, with a genuine onion-forward flavor that works without tipping into heavy or over-seasoned territory. If you've got one of those sauces in your pantry right now, here's what you can actually do with it. Simmer it with a splash of dry red wine and a drizzle of olive oil because the wine cuts the sweetness and the olive oil partially offsets the seed oils already in there. Cook fresh garlic in olive oil first, then add the jarred sauce on top of that, and you get a real flavor base that powdered garlic never delivers. Nothing you do in the kitchen touches PFAS or heavy metals. Those stay regardless. For every jar you buy going forward, check 3 things fast. What oil is listed first, whether sugar lands in the first 5 ingredients, and whether the tomatoes are whole or crushed versus paste. Those 3 checks alone will keep most of the worst offenders out of your cart. And if you want to know what's hiding inside canned tomatoes next, subscribe, because some of what's in those cans makes this list look mild.